please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, the Monday morning today version. Jeff and I were not able to record last night, so we're doing Monday morning, but thanks, everybody, for listening. As always, if you can please rate and review the podcast, that'd be fantastic. Jeff, let's get going here. It's Monday, March 15th. We are dead in the middle of draft season. I know you have about 74 drafts or so this week, so you got a busy week going on. First of all, how's everything?
I'm good. Back from Wichita. Got my parents moved in. Now just let them get used to their new life, and I get back to my old life, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, you're jumping right in a weekend away in the middle of baseball season. Probably tough for what you do.
It wasn't the worst weekend to do this, but it was high on the list. But still, things have to get done. Anyways, I am excited. Big draft weekend and a lot of news too.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump through the news and notes fairly quickly, and then I want to talk about the stolen base market. I want to talk some ADP risers and fallers. So let's jump right in. First big note was Steven Strasburg yesterday left after 45 pitches. He was diagnosed with a strained plantaris muscle in his left calf. Both he and the team said it was like an important game or something, he would have pitched through it. Doesn't feel as prolonged. But, it's Strasburg. It's a top, a fifth, sixth round guy, wherever he happens to be slotting in right now. Kind of more in the fifth round as we go through these events and pitches get pushed up.
For me.
I was going to say, does it worry you a little bit? I know it worries you a little bit, but how much does it worry you?
I already was not drafting him until after pick 100, so I was never getting him.
Right.
But, yeah, it's just one thing. Hey, I'll say this. The fact that it was a spring training game and they didn't feel the need to have him keep pitching is a good thing. Yeah. It saved him from hurting himself even more. We know how these calf muscles are. Quad injuries. I'm like, you don't want to push it. You don't want to try to come back too soon. You don't want to try to push through it. I mean, that's exactly the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, I the only thing I would say is good is that I'd rather have it be a lower half injury than anything to do with his surgery or his arm or anything like that. And
of course.
He hasn't had a lot of lower half injuries. All his stuff has pretty much been arm related. So that's good too. But you're right, that the calf and like the pushing off and all that kind of stuff, it does tend to linger. So I think you got to move him down a little bit until we see him pitch again. I'm not super worried, but I don't know. At some point, I'd probably buy the discount if it was a big one there, but. I'm not sure if he gets back on the mound. We'll see a big one by the time the main event comes around with the way starting pitching is a little crazy right now.
Right.
Especially when we got the next guy, a guy kind of in his range a little bit earlier is Sonny Gray with your Reds. Back spasms shut down for 3 or 4 days, but he doesn't seem concerned, but he also said he doesn't think he'll be ready for the first week of the season. So there's a little bit there of not concerned it's long term, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be really quick either.
No, and you remember he didn't pitch in his previous start. They had him working on the side instead. It was said because he was working on his pitches. Now I'm a little bit more suspicious.
Me too.
And it's been a really low-key awful camp for the Reds. Amir Garrett hasn't pitched in a game yet. Lucas Sims hasn't pitched in a game yet. Sean Doolittle just gave up another homer as we're talking. Unfortunately, I love Doolittle, but I'm pretty nervous about him for obvious reasons. It hasn't been great. TJ Antone, who we're about to talk about, also got banged up yesterday.
Yep.
My guy, TJ Antone, everybody's guy, TJ.
I was going to
Antone.
introduce him as your guy, so yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So it's although I think Clay would have a beef with that. It was his guy before it was cool. So I'm concerned. I'm absolutely concerned about this one. I've been no play for Mr. Gray so far, but not by design. Just don't have him yet. But this pushes him down at least a round for me.
The no play for Mr. Gray is a great commercial, by the way.
It is. All-time classic.
So I was going to say, if you're drafting today, where do you put Gray? But you are drafting today. I think you do the RotoWire NFBC Online Championship today, right?
That is correct, sir.
So at what point did Gray have to get to for you to click the little draft button there on the software?
Let me pull up what I have him at right now. I haven't adjusted his projection yet, but I will after the pod. Currently, I have them in like the 70s, but I'll probably go in the 80s. Okay. Push back at least around. It's a 12er, so it was currently going to be somewhere in like the 6th round or so, and now I'll probably go 7th or 8th. One of the reasons why I don't have him is typically I'm not drafting starting pitchers where he goes. I've already gotten 2 or maybe even 3. And if that's the case, then I'm usually looking towards hitting those hitters or finding that first closer. Now, it only emphasizes I think I'm going to go that route this time.
Yeah, I think that he's someone that probably right now has to. I mean, you got to figure if you're guessing. I think he misses maybe 2 starts, maybe 3 to start the season, which is, starts to get to the point where it actually matters. And then and not only that, but you're starting with something it's a condition. He had some back issues late last year too, so something that has not gone away. And back spasms are weird. Like I have had back spasms a bunch of my life, and it's like it'll be debilitating for 3 or 4 days, and then you feel kind of normal right then. So it could be something like that. Obviously, I'm not quite as good an athlete or well-conditioned as Sonny Gray is, so hopefully his back spasms do better than mine. But I don't know. They're just a weird thing that it's hard to time. It's hard to put a timetable on. And that's just always scary when you have a pitcher who obviously needs to get there every 5th day, and any kind of tweak or spasm is going to cause problems.
Yeah, I'm actually going to downgrade him 5 starts just in case.
Oh wow. So
well,
you got to jump. That's 15% of the season then.
That was the exact number that I downgraded him, because you can do a downgrade across the board by percentage in our back end. And it was like, do I do 10 or do I do 15? Let's do 15 just to be safe. Here's the thing.
That matters at that point. That's a lot.
It does. Well, I had a full 32 for him too. Okay. So natural precaution would suggest you downgrade him a couple already. But you already know he's going to miss the first week. And that's if there's no setbacks whatsoever. So that's the rationale for that. Your mileage may vary.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing with Gray, what I liked is that I thought he was a guy that would get out there and make those starts and get those innings in a year that might be difficult. And now we're starting with him not doing that. I love Sonny Gray, but yeah, it definitely moves him down my list a decent amount.
Well, and keep in mind too, he had problems last year.
Yep.
He had that horrific start against the Cardinals, and then he got hurt, and then he was out. We all thought he was kind of hurt in that start, and they kind of denied it for a little bit. And then, we're going to put him on the injured list just as a precaution again. Yeah, I'm getting, the more I talk about it here, the more I'm cooling off on him.
So it also in red camps, TJ Antone had a slight tweak in his groin. He actually expects to make his next start, so this one doesn't sound quite as troubling as Gray does.
Right.
I think this is one of those that, like, as long as he makes his next start, he's fine, but definitely be watching that start closely.
Well, and, we don't even know if he's in the rotation either. We all think he should be.
He is now, right? If Gray's out to start the season, you got to think he definitely is, right?
Well, I mean, there was Miley was going to be the 4 starter. Then it was going to be Antone or Lorenzen or Jose De Leon or Jeff Hoffman. We forget about those 2. We don't really talk about those 2 guys that much. Jose De Leon is dealing this spring. Oh. Have you seen what his numbers are?
I have, because you sent them to me.
Yes. So,
and I think you tweeted it, but Hoffman's interesting too. That was a guy that I kind of liked a little bit in Colorado a couple years ago, but he was in Colorado, so it was kind of hard to really like him, and then he just exploded after that. I mean, he was just really bad the last couple of years. But someone that maybe just needs a full change of scenery. Yeah. I'm not jumping in yet by any means, but he's someone that I have a little mark next to kind of watch him his first couple starts and see what it looks like.
Yeah, and by the way, I kind of overstated the case on Jose De Leon. He's striking out a ton of guys. 14 Ks in 8 innings. He's actually got a 5.63 ERA in spring. Not that we're going to, but keep in mind, spring's all funky this year and all that. Actually, but with all rollover innings and things like that.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, Hoffman, change of scenery guy, throws hard, generates a lot of spin. Reds love that. Those are 2 guys, and I think Hoffman's out of options, if I recall correctly, too.
Yeah, career 6.4 ERA does not look especially pretty, but like I said, I think he's one of those guys that just had to get out of Colorado.
Yeah.
So last guy I want to talk about here real quick is Austin Nola, catcher with the Padres, diagnosed with a fractured finger. We don't really have a set timetable here. He's obviously one of those catchers that was kind of in that 3rd tier catcher, was drafted, pretty highly up, moving to San Diego. Sounds like he's going to get treatment for the next couple days, and then before we have a set timetable. But I imagine that a fractured finger on your receiving hand for a catcher catching all those guys who throw 97 is probably not especially great.
Not. And I think, we're trying to hit 97 miles an hour and you're dealing with a fractured middle finger too. That can't be good. It doesn't matter which hand does it for that. I mean,
it doesn't matter which hand for that. Yeah.
It is bad. I downgrade him too.
Yeah, I think that probably we're looking at a month kind of thing would be my guess. And to answer your question, Jeff Hoffman is out of options.
Yeah, I thought so. Oh, that's
So
tricky this year, by the way. I read an article about that.
It's all tricky right now, right? Like, it's hard to figure out. Yesterday, Frankie Montas came off the COVID list to pitch for the A's, and I was like, oh, I wonder who they're gonna cut off the 40-man roster to make a space for him, and they just decided to do nobody because it's COVID rules as you want. So they didn't have to cut anybody. I think they're kind of holding off. I guess they're allowed to. So I was there's a lot of strange stuff going on right now.
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
So I really want to get into the stolen base market. So let's jump in there. Those are kind of the major news I want to talk about. First, a note from our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Fantasy baseball is here, and you've got to check out these new best ball leagues on Underdog. Best ball is the ultimate test of your live draft skills, so there's no in-season management. That's right. Draft your team, and Underdog automatically credits you with the best performing players every week. You don't need to play the waiver wire or worry about trades, just the draft. Who doesn't love drafting? In Underdog Best Ball, you draft as many times as you want because you don't have to do any roster management, saving you loads of time during the season. Underdog's Best Ball leagues are drafting right now, starting at just $3. Once the season starts, Underdog also has daily fantasy and an all-new pick'em game. Go download the Underdog app now to get the best ball before the season starts. Enter promo code RotoWire for your first deposit, and Underdog will honor a money-back guarantee during your first month. Love Underdog or get your money back with promo code RotoWire. Search Underdog in your app store and enter promo code RotoWire. So, Jeff, last week we talked about saves a bunch. The other, kind of one category that it's kind of tricky and, guys that are specialists is stolen bases on the offensive side. The real question you got to look to, first of all, is how many do you need? And I just looked at the NFBC main event in 2019. That was a year where there was a juice ball. Stolen bases were down. They'll probably be a little more down this year. But, if we get a dead ball, maybe they go up a little bit. But the 80th percentile in the main event that season was 125 stolen bases. Mm-hmm. That sounds like a freaking ton to me when you kind of look at stuff and line guys up and do your projections, do targets. But, that's kind of where you're trying to get to, whether that be, you have Mondesi and then a bunch of little guys, or you have a bunch of, 15 to 20 stolen base guys. The hard part that I see right now is early speed the early speed is everywhere. If the 17 players projected by 20 plus stolen bases by the bat, I just picked a production system, 13 of those 17 go in the first 4 rounds. So that's a huge percentage of guys who are taken in the first 60 picks. A lot of those are even earlier. We've got a lot of first round guys. The non-4 that aren't in the top 4 rounds are Miles Straw, Victor Robles, Dylan Moore, and Byron Buxton. We'll obviously get to those guys here as we talk about stolen bases as we go through here, but there's just a lot of speed early. If you don't get it early in those first 4 rounds, you are really chasing, and that freaks me out a little bit because if you take a starting pitcher, you take a big bat that's not a steals guy, Eloy Jimenez or Freddie Freeman, someone like that. I don't know. Stolen bases are tough to get somewhere else, but you got to get at least some early.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I mean, it's really you can't let Freeman go either. I mean, he's just too good. Yeah. I mean, you just can't say, oh, he's undraftable. Yeah. That's not true.
No,
that's not true. You're giving up so much value there. Rob Silver in the magazine, RotoWire magazine, which it did an amazing job with, but he wrote about this conflict. We have 2 conflicts. There's got to get your arms, got to get your innings. Pocket Aces has worked really well. Bat Flip Crazy Toby did a great job with that. And we're seeing a lot of people do that this year. The problem, and a lot of people are starting to do that. It's pushing up like all these other starters that probably don't deserve to be pushed. But yeah, you got to get your speed too. Something's got to give, right?
Yeah. You only get 4 picks in the first 4 rounds, unfortunately, and everybody's like, "Oh, you got to get a couple pitchers and then a big bat and a couple steals guys." You're like, "Well, math-wise, it doesn't work very well."
Yeah, you're at 120% right now. All right.
Yeah. So I don't really want to talk about all these guys in the first 4 rounds because everybody knows they're good. We know all about them. I think it's a little more valuable to get to these other guys. So I want to talk about the guys in round 6 to 10, 10 to 20, and kind of 20 plus. So as you get to 6 to 10, the first guy who comes up is Cavan Biggio. And we're going to see a lot of these guys that aren't in the first 4 rounds have their warts elsewhere. And there's a reason that they're speed guys, but they don't have they don't have all the other stuff. Biggio's a tough one, a player I really like, but as we're seeing in spring training lineups, they don't mean everything, but we get a little bit of feel. He's hitting down the order right now. He's hitting 6th. If everybody's in the lineup, he might hit 7th. Has 20 stolen bases in 159 career Major League Baseball games. The walk rate's great for his stolen baseball opportunities, but if he's hitting 6th or 7th, not quite as great. Where are you on Biggio right now? ADP is 67, so we're talking like middle of the 5th round.
Yeah, so I was on him early.
Me too.
And then I felt like I was too high on him. And maybe I talk about my draft results, and I'll go back and forth like Liz and others. And yeah, the batting order is a problem. The batting average is a problem, perhaps. I mean, I think I'm in I think I was higher than ADP before. Now I think my ranking is about ADP. Usually that means I'm not getting them by that point. Usually it means there's 5 guys I like ahead of time. But we've got some extra pressure. We didn't really mention the Trent Grisham injury, but that's something we have to worry about. He's got a hamstring issue. Guess what? Hamstring issues are not good for guys that run.
Nope.
And if that's one of your alternatives, an option away from going, taking Biggio, well, that's just one less guy. I mean, and Grisham's at 71 in ADP since March 1st, so I mean he's in that same neighborhood.
Yeah, he's actually my next guy on the list. So
I spoiled it. Sorry.
No, that's good. The only thing with Biggio, you do get that second base, third base, and outfield eligibility. I love that eligibility because he's got
great.
middle, corner, and outfield. I like him as a player. I actually think the batting average is going to come up a little bit. He doesn't. It's weird. He struck out at 23% last year, 28.6% the year before. Swinging strike rate actually dropped to 7.8% last year. So I kind of feel like maybe he's taking some cold strikes in there. Maybe he's just figuring stuff out. But he's not a big swing and miss guy. Mm-hmm. I think that K rate's going to drop, which I think brings that average up a little bit. I still like him, but if he's going to hit 7th, it's really hard to get on board because we need those stolen bases from his spot.
Yeah, and it's fewer plate appearances. Although maybe he runs more lower in the order. It's not 9, but figure he's not gonna. Sometimes you get like a guy that's right in front of a big hitter, and you don't want him to run. And sometimes that's not going to be an issue.
Yeah, when you know Teoscar's going yard, there's really no reason to take an extra base.
Oh yeah, I mean Teoscar's batting pretty low too sometimes too. That's the other thing.
Yeah, I've seen him low and I've seen him 4th. I think that's maybe depends on where Tellez hits, where Vlad hits. It's a lineup that's really long and really deep. So maybe hitting 7th there is not quite the same as hitting 7th in Pittsburgh per se, but. I don't know. I think we might see Biggio slip a little bit in drafts. I know people need speed, which makes it hard to do that, but I think there's enough people that are down on him that maybe he falls back to the back end of the 5th round.
Well, especially once we get to the main events and people start to freak out about pitching even more than they already have. Hard to believe that's possible, but it always happens. Something's got to drop, and he seems like a guy that would drop.
It's very true. Something does have to drop. You talked about Trent Grisham. He had 10 stolen bases in 59 games last year. Sounds like he's going to hit leadoff. We don't know if he's going to hit leadoff against lefties. Late last year, they kind of put him down in the order against lefties. Mm-hmm. So far this spring, they've kind of been like, he's our leadoff hitter. You mentioned the hamstring strain. It is a grade 1, which is the mildest of that kind of strain. But you're right. I mean, if you have any sort of hamstring issue, the last thing you do is try to take a base really quickly. So you just got to figure that maybe starts him slow stolen bases. He is super fast. He's 96th percentile in sprint speed. A player I like, but I think at ADP 71, I think you mentioned, he's pretty much fully priced. So it's I think he's fine there, but you're not getting a bargain anymore on Grisham.
Yeah, you're not. And I kind of have to downgrade him a little bit too. It would be like a 5% downgrade, I think, but I think a downgrade nonetheless.
I think in the speed it probably has to a little bit because I think you got to figure that in April maybe he's not extending takes to 2 stolen bases at the moment.
Yeah, and remember we've got a lot of pressure in a crowded Padres roster.
Yep.
That we're already trying to figure out how are we going to get playing time for the trio of Cronenworth, Kim, and Profar. It looks like Cronenworth's got the lead on that one, which. And he might actually be someone that we look at later on as he gets up a couple bags. Same with Profar, for that matter. But I know I'm stealing your thunder left and right here, but
you aren't. I had Cronenworth in the ADP followers late. I don't know if we're gonna quite get there, but he's someone that I actually like more than I thought I would. Let's just hit on him really quickly since we're talking about it.
Yeah, sure.
He's an interesting skills guy. If you look at kind of someone that I was a little surprised how. I mean, I knew he was good last year. I actually had him on some teams, but he's got a 15% strikeout rate, a 5.8% swinging strike rate, good hard hit rate, 43%, 10.5% barrel rate. Dude was really good last year. He only had 4 home runs and 3 stolen bases, but hit 285. He's eligible at first, second, and shortstop, which is freaking fantastic.
Yes.
He's actually fallen. His ADP was 200 in the last week. It's 216. I think there's some playing time concerns there, like you mentioned with Kim and Profar. But you look at his StatCast page, like the whole thing's red. Like it's really impressive. Stole 12 bases in 88 games in AAA in 2019. He's a 92nd percentile sprint speed guy. it kind of lines up like the maybe the playing time stuff makes him a little bit of a value this year. But I'd like to see him slip a round or two. But he's someone that I'm buying the dip on right now, and I didn't think I would maybe a week ago until I looked a little bit deeper at him.
Yeah, and he's going to add outfield probably to his eligibility at some point too, which we like. Like you said, a lot of red. I mean, deep red too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 98th percentile in outs above average, 92% sprint speed. Expected batting average, 98th percentile. I mean, the lowest of those is his walk percentage at 54th percentile. I mean, everything is red or pink.
It is.
It's really cool. And batting order too. When and this was pointed out in one of my drafts. I think it was when I did the Baseball HQ's for first pitch Florida coverage of NL Labor. One of the commenters pointed out every time Cronenworth and Profar were in the lineup together, Cronenworth was hitting higher.
Yeah,
for that matter.
And I mean, they have a deep lineup, so there might be some games he's hitting seventh or whatever it may be. But I mean, if you're hitting seventh behind Hosmer, Pham, and Myers, you're gonna have guys on base. Like that's not a seventh in a bad lineup. I don't know. I was surprised by how good the skills looked when I took a deeper look.
Yeah, I'm on board with him. I got him at 302 in CGFBI.
I remember. That was insane. I remember you told me, you're like, I might take Cronenworth's available here, and I was like, are you sure? Like maybe you want to check the board again? But that's a fantastic. You got him at like the peak of like playing time concern, and maybe everybody was just off minute league. But 302, my God, that's insane.
Yeah, Will Myers, by the way, too, was banged up a little bit, had a stiff knee. Although it looks like he's going to be fine. He practiced over the weekend, but man, there have it. You know what? This is the actually. Stefanovic always says like, wait a couple weeks into spring training and you get this wave of injuries. Well, here we are. Yep. The funny thing is, I thought we'd have like 4 or 5 TGSs already, and we've had like 1.
Don't put that out in the world.
I know. But Forrest Whitley, he's the list right now.
Yeah, probably the least surprising one, but yeah, he's the list at the moment. But yeah, I think you're right. Because you get in these couple weeks, and now we're at the point where these injuries matter. Like we talked a couple weeks ago, like whatever, he's got to tweak it from. He's got a couple weeks to figure it out. We're at the point now where we're what are we 2.5 weeks from the season starting, almost exactly. It starts 3 Thursdays from now. These injuries start to matter. These are guys that you have to pay attention now because they may actually start to start the season on the IL, et cetera.
Yeah, that's right. You already know with Sonny Gray, he's going to miss the opening week. That's at least, that. Yeah, so that's the thing. We got to watch really closely on that. All right, well, who's next?
So let's stick with these stolen base guys in round 6 to 10. Next guy is Dylan Moore. Kind of a guy that people are all over the place on. ADP is about 125. Has 23 stolen bases in 151 major league games. The thing that jumps out to me is he's been caught 14 times. So he may have a bunch of steals, but he's not very good at it. Sprint speed 71st percentile. So he's not slow, but not a huge burner. I just don't know how much they want Dylan Moore to really run at that percentage and with his stolen base opportunities. I don't know. I think he's a guy that might get a little bit of a yellow light in the base pass and not a full green.
Yeah, but he was better last year than he was. A lot of those caught stealings were in 2019. He was 11 for 20.
He was better. He was a different player last year. I get that. Where do you follow Dylan Moore overall? Because obviously he was a really intriguing speed power guy last year with 8 home runs and 12 stolen bases. Where do you feel on him in his ADP, which is about round 9 or so?
I want to get the back end of his range. I'm willing to do it. I took him over my projection actually in terms of custom value. I think I might underrate speed a little bit. I got another guy. You're just like going down through my whole TGFBI roster right now. I got him at pick 152.
Oh yeah, that ain't gonna happen again. That's a good pick too.
Yeah, it might be, but I'm not. And the funny thing is, I'm not. He's a real playing time risk guy though. Also, I mean, he could just straight up lose the job at some point.
I think he'd have to be pretty bad. I think he's got a little bit of a leash just based on last year. But yeah, they have a lot of moving parts there, especially when Jared Kelenic gets called up. By the way, he sounds just pissed at the organization in general, pretty much every day. It's a weird situation. He does not sound happy. He had an interview yesterday where they were pretty much like, he's like, I'm 100% ready to go, and the team's like, no, you're not. And they put a date there and they said, have you been given a date for coming back? And he just said, yep, and shook his head and kind of walked away. And it's just, it's not good. It's not a good relationship. With your like stud star rookie, and you're playing, they're already playing the service time games. Now they're playing the like, well, if you're injured, we have like even more deniability when you aren't on the open day roster. Like it's just, I don't know. At some point you don't want to piss off your young guy over and over, right?
sometimes the young guy might have to stand down a little bit here too, though. I mean,
probably true, but he's
especially in terms of the injury. I mean, if you're arguing it's one thing if it's a medical decision. If the doctor is telling you that you have a certain date to come back,
right? Yeah,
and you're like, I feel great, I'm fine. It's kind of like, okay, I get it. And you want that bravado to a certain extent, but you also don't want to aggravate an injury by, rushing to come back just so you can prove them wrong.
And you'd like to think the doctor is not playing service time games, but I imagine in Kelnick's head, like everything is just kind of them working against him right now.
Yeah, you don't want to be like the Red Sox back in the '80s when the doctor was also a shareholder of the team and all that. But I think it was maybe '70s actually, but it was really scandalous. It was really bad, But I don't think it's going to be in that bad of a situation, but still, I don't know. I still want some Kelnick, but yeah, I'm a little concerned. But he's a guy too, that might get some speed for you too. Is the other thing.
Yep. But with more, I mean, playing time is definitely a thing that I think starts out fine. I think Shed Long's been hurt, so like that second base competition's kind of gone away in spring.
A little bit. Because Ty France also could play second base.
Ty France could play second base, could also, and there's some DH in there, and there's some outfield. I mean, they're like Jared Kelnick getting called away from being really crowded, I think is the problem. I think Moore is fine now, but 3 weeks in, if he's struggling, then I think maybe it becomes an issue. And you don't really want a guy in the 9th round that has to hit in the first month or could lose playing time. So that's a little concerning. But he did take major steps up last year. Like everything he did was different. I mean, hard contact went way up. I mean, he was a different player last year. There's been talk about adjustments he made. Strikeout rate dropped from 33% really high to 27%. So still high, but not quite as bad. Hard hit 44.7, barrel rate 13.8. So he's a guy that made a lot of loud contact last year. Granted, 38 games, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It wasn't even the full 60.
No.
And is that just a heater? That's the question. Is that his new level, or is that just okay? Great, he had a good run.
He feels like a streaky guy too.
35% of the time to begin the season. Yeah,
you could see him as a heater type guy too, like these swing and miss power guys. There's some heater aspect there, but you're right. 38 games is a little bit scary to jump on as kind of a new player. But there are some stories about him changing his approach and stuff. But
right.
Yeah, you want to see it more than 38 games. He's a tough guy to figure out where to slot in.
Yeah, 28-year-old already, turns 29 in August. And I only say that in terms of a late debut. I mean, I'm not really worried about him slowing down this year. But Taylor Trammell is on this team. He's pushing for playing time also. Haniger's back. He's healthy for now. Where's Jose Marmoleos going to play, Scott? I had to add a projection for him and Jake Fraley just in case, but they have options and help is on the way. So this is, like you said, it's going to get more crowded. Theoretically, they could even go, call up Julio Rodriguez at some point this season too.
Yeah, obviously a huge stud prospect on the front of all the prospect magazines and books this year. So let's go there right now. Let's talk about Victor Robles. ADP is 144, moving up fast. I saw him get picked in the 8th round of a big draft over the weekend. There was a $2,500 entry, the Super DC that Mike Mercado put out, and they were drafting all weekend. I've been out there as Robles is a fade last year. I don't think he's a fade for me this year, but I think it has to be the right build. I get it in the right build. Stolen bases are tough if you get to this round, and you need some. He's a guy that stole 28 bags in 2019. I just still don't think he can hit. I'm not going to go through all of it again because I've done it before. I talked about it on the
pod. Do it all again. This is we have new listeners every single podcast.
I mean, real quick, 2nd percentile in hard hit rate, 5th percentile in barrel rate, 1st percentile in exit velo. Weak contact is 11.9%. Major league average in that category is like 3.2%. Career OBP is 320. Last year he had 220 with a 28% strikeout rate and a 5% walk rate. Like, the guy was not a good hitter last year. He's fast, he's athletic, he's young, he's going to come at some point, but we're drafting for this year. We're not drafting for a dynasty league, and I think he fits if you really need steals in the 10th round. I just don't think he's getting past like the 7th round in the main event, because I think there's all this smoke about him leading off, which is a big, big thing for that lineup. He would have a lot of great hitters hitting behind him. He'd get stolen base opportunities. The key is whether he can stick at leadoff. I don't think he can, but obviously if he does, it means he's doing well, and he's a huge value at that price. I think we're going to see main events where he goes in the 6th and 7th round, though.
Yeah, you probably will. And if he goes that high, I know you're not there.
I'm not.
And hey, I get it. I have him in keeper leagues, and I'm not giving up on him. I've actually resisted some offers, but
I wouldn't give up on him there too, because I think it's going to come at some point, but it ain't there. He can't hit right now, to put it simply. Like, everybody last year was like, oh, the exit doesn't matter. Well, he was terrible last year, and there's a lot of stats that show that he can't hit the ball well. I mean, he doesn't hit the ball hard at all. He's got a ton of speed. He can make up for that. I get it. He's going to play every day. He can play the outfield really well, but I just I don't see it enough from a hitting aspect for me to push him up that far, even if I need some steals at that point.
I mean, he could go to Shields on us. It's possible.
And he could be a top 50 player, top 40 player pretty easily too if it all comes together. But I'm not betting it all come together when I haven't seen it even a little bit yet.
Right. But he perfectly illustrates our problem in the first couple rounds. It's like, if you don't get stolen bases early, you have to take chances on guys like Robles. Yep. Robles, the actual Robles, or guys like Robles.
Yeah. And I don't like him as an overall real baseball player at the moment, at least offensive wise. But yeah, if I get to the point where I don't have steals and he's there in the 7th, 8th round, I have to consider him. I'd be stupid not to, just because I think of, what I think. I need stolen bases, and he's a guy that could steal 35 bases. So it's just, I don't put him on my fade list this year, because there could be a build I have through 6 or 7 rounds where I have to strongly consider the guy.
Yeah, but you don't want to be in a case though where you have to get him. I mean,
I'd like to avoid it for sure.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, you're going to have to back that pick up. You're going to have to find others too, because if he's your main stolen base guy, that's so much volatility there. I mean, that's the real problem.
And I think he ends up hitting 7th for a bunch of the year too, which doesn't help there. There's just. Right. There's a lot going on here. I get it, and I think there's gonna be someone. I think there'll be someone in each draft that likes him so much that it won't be a consideration for me. And I think he'll get priced up to the point where I won't even get to that point where I'm like, oh well, maybe I need him here now. I think he'll get snapped up before I even get that far.
I think so too.
So let's talk about Byron Buxton's an interesting one here. He only had 2 stolen bases last year, but 13 home runs. So he weirdly turned into a power guy. ADP is 112. He had 14 stolen bases in only 87 games in 2019. He is obviously crazy fast. He's 99th percentile sprint speed last year. Do you think the Twins want him and all his physical maladies running? Do you think they let him go? What do you think he hits? You and Chris Liss talk about Buxton a lot, so you probably have a good feeling of him. Where are you on Buxton right now?
I am not the Buxton guy. I am the listen about Buxton guy.
I understand, yes.
I'm actually warming up to him. Because I think the lack of running last year was a little bit of a fluke. He hasn't had a real injury this year, just a tooth. That's okay. That doesn't affect his running, as far as I know.
As far as you know.
Yeah, he's not a saber-toothed tiger or anything like that, so we're good. I think that I could see myself going on, but I'll tell you what. I think I say that, and then I just look and see last year in his good season, 2 and 36. Those are the 2 numbers I focus on. 2 walks, 36 Ks, and then I'm back out again. And I just can't. There's always someone in the room that likes him better than I do.
I'm more in than I have been on the past. I've been very out on him at ADP for many years. I just look at how much he changed as a hitter. Like, you look at his hard hit rate was up 10%, barrel rate was 13. Like, he really hit the ball hard last year. The 13 home runs look pretty real when you look at all that stuff. But yeah, if you're going to take him, you want him to run a little bit. So those 2 stolen bases, along with the 2 walks you mentioned, there's a couple 2s in his profile that are a little concerning. I just don't know how much the Twins want him running, to be honest. He's so valuable to them in the outfield, and he's he's probably the best defensive center fielder in baseball. Him or Jacob Bradley Jr. probably. I just don't know if they want him running, and that's a franchise thing that we don't know and we won't know. I don't know. The 2 last year does scare me a little bit, maybe more than it should.
And it's valid. I mean, and they need him in that lineup as best they can. And while we're talking batting order too, I mean, he's another guy that you kind of have to worry. Where is he going to hit? He's hitting 9th a lot, 8th a lot. And if we're gonna hold that against Biggio, for crying out loud, you got to hold it against a guy that's batting 9th.
And especially a guy that, like, every time they moved him up, it hasn't worked very well. So maybe they're a little more hesitant to move him up quicker and just kind of leave him where he's comfortable. And yeah, 7, 8, 9 matters. Just getting less at bats, less opportunities, less runs. I mean, it's just it's tough.
Yeah, I'm looking. I see actually batted 7th yesterday. So that's that's still not great. Not great, Bob.
If you happen to be drafting right now as you're listening, Tanner Scott probably just went up ADP because Hunter Harvey is out indefinitely with an oblique strain at the moment. That news just came out. So,
okay.
If you're looking for Orioles closers, Tanner Scott just took the lead in that job probably. Stolen base guys here. Will Myers, last guy in this range, pick 130. 16 stolen bases in 2019, 155 games. Another guy like Buxton, only 2 last year. Still fast, though, 85th percentile in sprint speed last year. He just feels like a guy to me that maybe has transitioned into a little more of a power hitter. They need him to drive in runs. He feels like more of a 10 stolen base guy to me now. I like Will Myers, but I don't think we're looking at the 20 stolen base guy anymore.
I agree. He's at that age. I don't think that he's already dealing with a sore knee. He moved him from the center to a corner. Although maybe if Grisham's out, that Myers has to play a little bit more center. That's possible.
No, I don't think anybody wants that. It didn't go well last time.
No, it didn't. But who else plays center if
nobody.
Grisham's out?
That's what I liked about Grisham is there's nobody else on that team to play center field.
Profar? Hey.
Yeah, I've seen that arm from second base, and I want no part of that in center field, to be honest.
Well, was it a lack of strength or was it a lack of accuracy?
It was a complete mental block, is what it was.
Yeah, it was a block.
That was good.
Thank you.
I mostly threw that as a joke, but yeah, watching him turn double plays with like this little like rainbow ephus pitch was quite frustrating as guys beat out double plays consistently that whole year when he was playing second for the A's.
Yeah. The word parabola comes to mind with him.
That's a good geometry term that gives me nightmares of not doing well in geometry in high school.
Hey, we had to talk Reds nightmares earlier, and now it's A's nightmares time.
There you go. Let's talk about this middle range here, as we're obviously going long as we usually do. Rounds 10 through 20 with stolen base guys. This is ranges like you need to, even if you have steals, you gotta get more guys. If you don't have steals, you really gotta pop in this range and start to attack some guys. My first guy is someone that's really moving up in ADP. Kind of a news thing. Andres Jimenez. It sounds like he's going to be the starting shortstop. All reports are that he's the guy at short for them. He had 8 stolen bases last year in 49 major league games. He had 28 stolen bases in 117 Double-A games in 2019. Very fast guy, 94th percentile sprint speed last year. There are lineup concerns here too. Like if you look at roster resource, something like that, he's going to kind of hit in the bottom of the order, but playing every day. Jimenez is moving up. Are you moving up with him?
Yeah, I am. The fact that Rosario is playing at other positions now, I think that's our sign. That's the thing that's really encouraging. So yeah, I'm definitely bigger on Jimenez.
Second, short, and third base eligibility really plays really nicely in a year that we're going to want to use those Friday moves. And I mean, Jimenez was good last year. Hit 263, only had 3 home runs, but he's not a hard hit guy, so you're not going to expect any pop out of him. But he had 9 home runs in Double-A in 2019, so maybe you get 6 to 8 home runs, something like that. But I mean, there's a chance you get 25 stolen bases out of this bat.
That's right. That's absolutely right. So
I don't think he gets past the first break in any of the main event drafts.
That's a big jump, but
yeah,
I think
we're talking the high 130s to 140 somewhere in there. I think someone's going to jump up and grab him at that price.
I'd say the downside to him is like, what sort of power are you going to get out of him?
Yeah, I think it's minimal.
Yeah, and that sometimes, if there's no power, sometimes that means also like the walk rate tumbles a little bit after pitchers start to realize, okay, we have to pitch at him. We can't let him just get on base. So thus you run into that problem a little bit there. So that's something to watch for just a little bit.
So my next guy in ADP here is an interesting one. It's Dalton Varsho at pick 178. Obviously his ADP is up there because he has catcher eligibility. There's a quote yesterday that he's going to move around. I think he's played like 2 games at catcher and then a bunch of games outfield. And talking about him as kind of the moving around and kind of fitting in where he can. 21 stolen bases, though, in 108 Double-A games in 2019. I mean, you're talking about a catcher. That would be insanely valuable if he had 20 stolen bases. But playing time's an issue. How they move around, if he makes the team, is an issue. Kind of the talk now seems like he's going to make the roster, but he's very fast. He's 86 percentile sprint speed guy. I was a little surprised by that. What the heck are you doing with Varsho right now and kind of all the questions up in the air with him?
I've been kind of low man on Varsho, but
I have too.
Cole Calhoun injury is the big key to this. Yeah, do they decide to send Varsho down even with Calhoun out? I mean, that's still a possibility. But he could also be an opening day starter. And yeah, this also might be the last year we get him at catcher too.
I think it probably he'll have to get 10 games. He might get one more, but I think we're running out of time for that for sure.
Yeah, I think that's going to end pretty quickly. But we don't care about that in the NFBC. We care about it in our keeper leagues, obviously, but
for sure.
Yeah, of course. I also, there's a lot to that. I'm just kind of worried about the hitting profile too. I mean, yes, he's a good prospect, but he's also someone that I think has a risk of hitting 190 and getting sent down too. And he made a 67% contact rate last year. Granted, very small sample, but he seemed overmatched once he hit the big leagues. He was better as the season, in his second couple of weeks than he was in his first couple. Yeah. The walk rate's high, 10.4% walk percentage is something we like, but and he never struck out that much in the minors. It might just be it's time. He needs the time to adjust, and he might get it. I mean, the Diamondbacks are kind of the right team. They're not expected to contend. Let's not mince words. They're not a contending team. You got the Dodgers and Padres in the same division. We don't have expanded playoffs.
Tough division to compete in if you're not really good.
Yeah, and the Giants are actually not bad either. So I think that Arizona's. I'm
not sure I'm not sure I'm fully in on that, but yeah, keep going.
Not bad. I didn't say they're good. I said they're not bad. They're not confoundingly stupid like the Rockies. And yeah, so I'll just leave it at that.
No, that's fair. They may end up being a third place team just because the other teams in the division. But yeah, you look at Varsho, 18 home runs, 21 stolen bases in Double-A. I mean, that's Double-A though in 2019. I'm kind of with you. I think he's really intriguing. I think it's really fascinating. It's catcher eligible, but in the whatever that is 11th, 12th round, I'm probably out.
Yeah, I might just be that I'm overreacting to small major league sample and needs more at bats, but we'll see.
A guy that I have trouble figuring out is ADP 195 is Nick Madrigal. He was called up last year for 29 games and did kind of what he does, hit for an insane average. He hit for average all over the minors. He was a huge batting average guy in college at Oregon State. No home runs, though, 2 stolen bases. He's not going to be a home run guy. You're not going to get any pop out of him. 20% hard hit rate last year, 0% barrel rate. It's not often you see a full zero in that column. But the strikeout rate is absurd. It's 6.4% last year in the majors, and even lower than that in the minors, believe it or not. Ton of ground balls, which is probably really good for his profile. There's no reason he should be hitting the ball in the air. Sprint speed was only 77%. I was a little surprised by that, but that does help the batting average of stolen base. He is fast, but not super fast. Stole 35 bases in 120 minor league games. Likely hits ninth though. He's another guy that we're getting through. Yeah. All these guys have scars and warts for a reason. There's a reason they're down here, not a little bit higher. So if he hits ninth, that kills runs, and he has no home runs and RBIs. You're looking at a batting average stolen base play only, and that gets a little scary at the price. I mean, he's still a top 200 guy. Where are you on Madrigal these days?
Might even start the year on the IL. He's had one game on Monday last week with the shoulder, and then has had residual soreness, and I'm just like,
not what you want from a young guy trying to kind of prove his worth and get in the lineup.
Or not that you want from a guy coming off surgery, too, for that matter. It might be a big nothing. It might just be, okay, this is normal soreness, and it'll take us out. But that was 6 days ago, Scott. I mean, I want him to play. And to be honest, I'm not in on him. The thing is, you have to be in on somebody.
You do. You got to find someone for speed here.
But I'm consistently under his ADP, way under his ADP. I've got him, I think, around. Let me double check where I've got him. I think I've got around 300, though. I mean, 280 is what I have him at. I'm just not getting him.
If he hits ninth, you're just giving up 3 categories, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he's just not. I mean, he gets out base, he'll score some when kind of lineup flips over, but you're talking about so many less at bats and plate appearances, hit ninth, and you're not getting home runs and RBIs. I don't know. I feel like you have to count on that batting average being really good so much. It's tough for me to get there.
Really good too. Yeah. Not just good, but
he's got to hit 310 for it to work, and that's hard to do.
And the sports writers love him. It's like, oh, look at him foul off all those pitches and frustrate that pitcher. You can't put a price on that. There's no stat that tells you about that. They love Mick Madrigal. Scrappy, hustles.
And I like him as a player too, and like watching him. But we're talking fantasy wise here, and if he's not going to give me. We're going to give me really low in 3 categories. I have concerns.
Yeah.
Jonathan VR, round pick 200. It might be hard to time this year. He's kind of a bench utility guy right now with the Mets. Obviously, that might open up as situations happen. Guys get hurt. But he had 16 stolen bases last year in only 52 games. He had 40 in 2019. Remember, that season was huge. The offense was bad last year. 26% strikeout rate, 15% swinging strike rate, which just is terrible for a guy who's not a huge power hitter. I don't like the guy as a hitter, but I tell you what, he's someone that just runs no matter what.
He's better on the Baltimores of the world. The teams that just don't care.
I think that's a really good
tough.
point, actually. I think that's a really good point, that he's a guy you want on a bad team just playing every day.
Yeah, you want, because run all you want. We'll play you every day. I'm not going to play him every day. He's just, now, we saw Jeff McNeil had his horrible day at third base defensively. We know what J.D. Davis is like defensively. That's your source of, where you get his third base is where VR kind of fits in the most. McNeil needs to stay at second. Maybe McNeil loses some extra playing time too as a result of this. I haven't been close to getting VR. Not even close. But some of that's playing time based. Like, I have him starting 90 games. Right? Do you really, and the thing is, do you want to have a guy in your lineup that starts 3 days a week? Do you want to have him active all week long? And you have to have him active every time to get all of his stolen bases. Because he's going to get a lot of stolen bases as a pinch runner. And it's going to be super tilting. Say, he's not in the lineup again today. Come on, Mets. Even though, and in real life, there's a good reason why he's not starting.
And it's not a guy you're taking at pick 325. It's pick 200. And that's a guy that you have to put in your lineup. And I already can see it. Like, Monday he's not starting. I'm like, I'll just put in I don't know, someone else to get some at bats. And then you're right, he steals 2 bases on Wednesday, and then you put him in Friday, doesn't play twice. It's just, I feel him being extremely frustrating and hard to time, and I don't want that at the price.
Yeah, and it's nice to have multi-position eligibility. He might add a third. He might add third base there too. It reminds me I need to downgrade J.D. Davis a little bit. I think I have a little too much playing time baked in on him, but he's very difficult. Very difficult to get. And then here's the thing: the Mets, they're doing a good job of team building. This is smart by them to have this sort of depth. I think I've made this point before. Better in real life than for us.
In the National League, like, you want a guy that can come in and pinch run is valuable, and you can move guys around and pinch hit late, and there's just a lot of things you can do. And you pinch if you're a pitcher and then pinch run for the guy. There's just it gives you a lot of options. So I think that you're right. That makes sense from a team build, but fantasy wise, I think he's going to be maddening, and you're going to miss stats. And it's going to be frustrating.
Yeah. Or McNeil gets hurt in week 2 and he's playing every day, and someone's got a windfall.
Certainly possible also. So let's get to someone that we talked about, guys that we kind of have some concerns with. Let's get to a guy that I really like. We'll go back to Cincinnati. We've talked about some bad Cincinnati stuff earlier. So let's talk to something I like. Nick Senzel. ADP is 242. I do not think anybody should count on that when we get to some later drafts here. I think he's going to be moving up also. Really struggled in 2020. Hit a .186, couple home runs, couple stolen bases. Looked exciting in 2019. As you know, 12 home runs, 14 stolen bases, 414 plate appearances. The K rate was bad in 2019. He's 24%, but in the minors he's below 20%. So I think that might start to normalize a little bit. 7% barrel rate guy in 2019. Not great, but not horrible. I'll defer to you on how the playing time works, but it seems like the Reds want him to play center field almost every day.
Yeah, they do. What's his name? Shohei Akiyama just got hurt too, so that picked up a hamstring injury against your A's on Saturday. The A's, of course, are a reason to blame any bad thing that happens. But
I'll take all fault. I'm good with that.
No, that's fine. But yeah, the Reds do want him to play. Second overall pick. How can you not want that guy to play on a regular basis? It's just a matter of him getting through. And some of those injuries, some of those issues have been kind of fluky. Last year was COVID was one of his issues.
Yep.
I don't know. We haven't seen it there, but I'm really scared someone else is going to enjoy his breakout season. And gotta remember, he's only been up in the bigs 2 years. It's just he lost all of 2019. That was the tough part. He lost it. He lost a full season when he was about ready for the promotion. Had 8 games at AAA. That's it. I still think there's a lot more to write about his story.
I do too. And there were some threads on Twitter going around this morning about people, not fully saying who they like or don't like on podcasts. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Nick Senzel is a big target for me. So you're drafting with me, you better push him up a little bit because I will be doing so. 97th percentile sprint speeds. We're talking about fast. He's a guy that's way, way up there in speed.
For sure.
Colton Wong, ADP of 254, signed with Milwaukee this offseason, moving Keston Hiura over to first base. He's a weird stolen base profile guy. He had 24 in 2019, only 5 last year. It was only 53 games, so that's not bad. But he's just kind of been all over the place stolen base. When you look at his stolen base history, it's like he goes from single digits to 24, then back down. It's just a weird up and down roller coaster. He stole 20 in 2014, 24 in 2019, and 3 years in a row he only stole single digits. So the question is, where do you think he hits in this Milwaukee order? Is it in terms of like his runs and opportunities and stuff, it's hard to figure out. Like, he could hit second, he could hit seventh or eighth. I don't know exactly what they're going to do, but he's a nice K rate guy, 14%, bumped up the walks last year. He's someone that you feel like can steal some bases, but then you look at his sprint speeds, 45th percentile, so he's not really fast, so maybe just good at knowing when to run, which is obviously a skill in itself. His ADP is 253 right now. I think you need 12 to 15 bags for that to work, and I'm kind of on the fence whether he gets there.
So the last 3 games he's played, he batted leadoff. 2 of those were against lefties.
Freaking love that.
I think I think we need to figure out what happens when Kane's in the lineup, because he was the projected leadoff guy. And
sure.
does that mean Wong drops all the way to 6 or 7? But probably not. I mean, is Orlando Arcia going to hit ahead of Wong? Is Narvaez going to hit ahead of Wong? Is Urias going to hit ahead of Wong? I mean, Wong could hit 5th, which says a lot about Milwaukee more than it does about him. But
weirdly, this lineup is not as good as last year. We were talking about, they have too many guys, nobody fits, and like now you're like, I don't know. It's kind of not as pretty as it was.
No, I mean it's one of those proverbial, okay, it's longer, but it doesn't scare you sort of lineups. I mean,
could Kane hit second and Wong hit first, and they kind of do it that way?
It could.
I was just thinking that splits up. That puts a righty between the 2 lefties, between Wong and Yelich. You get a righty
that's
in there.
kind of what they did. They did so a couple days ago. They did Wong, Hira, Yelich.
Okay.
And then they did Wong, Garcia, Yelich, and Hira batted 4th. I like that both. I mean, I don't think Kane's going to be ready for opening day. Also.
Yeah, I had him as a guy to talk about a little bit later with stolen bases, but I kind of tossed him out when I saw his sprint speed pretty much faded every year, sat out last year, already banged up, but he's 34. Yep. Hard to count him like to be a really big steals guy now.
Agreed.
Yeah. Garrett Hampson, ADP 258. We talked about him a bunch last year. I thought he was way overdrafted. I just don't think – he's another guy that, nowhere near as sexy and talented as Robles, but another guy that just I don't think can hit. Like, career 25% hard hit guy, 4.5% barrel rate. K rate was 32% last year. Like, he does not have enough power to be striking out that much. Did have that huge run in 2019 where he won people some leagues in September. He was a monster in September. Had 15 stolen bases in 105 games. He's 99th percentile sprint speed. He is super fast. I worry about playing time with him. I worry about him just kind of punching his way out of the lineup. I'm lower on Hampson than most, so I'll let you talk. Where do you fall on Garrett?
Garrett Hampson has hit 1st, 9th, 2nd, 8th in his last 4 spring training games. All over the map. Played second
Fantastic.
once, played left once, and played center twice. I don't know. They want it to work.
I think so too.
He hasn't had an extra base hit yet this spring training. I mean, we were thinking, okay, well, he could be like, we're like, Dylan Moore would aspire to be Garrett Hampson. Now it's the other way around.
No doubt. There's not. You get Coors Field, which is going to help the batting average boost up a little bit, but he still hit 247 and 234 the last 2 years. I don't know. I just don't think he can hit enough to stay in this lineup, and I'd like to see it. And there's definitely some speed there. If he were to play every day, like the stolen base upside's pretty good. Like, you could see him stealing 25 bases, with how fast he is if he stick in the lineup. But I don't know. And with the Rockies, they have so many different moving parts, and they just never stick with anything. I think like you said, they want it to work, but I think they give up on it pretty quick too.
I take Wong over Hampson straight up.
I would too.
Hampson, I'm about 20 spots below ADP, which means I'm never getting him, because obviously you need to be about 20 spots above ADP to get a guy like that, usually, at least in terms of your rankings, if you're going by rankings. Now, sometimes you just need speed, and you have to take a chance. I'd rather take a chance at pick 250 than take a chance at Victor Robles in the 6th or 7th round. So sometimes you have to hold your nose. My hold my nose guy has been Leody Taveras, but the news hasn't been good on him either.
Yeah, talking about a guy with some batting lineup issues right now. It sounds like he's pretty much out of the leadoff spot.
Yeah, I saw that over the weekend, and that's super concerning to me because, that's a guy that you need him. If he's batting 8th or 9th, that's going to kill him. But the funny thing is, he batted leadoff yesterday, though. So
yeah. You never know with some of these lineups, but a few more guys I want to get to before we got to get out here. I know you got to jump. Manny Margot, ADP 274, 12 stolen bases last year in 47 games. A really good rate right there. Stole 20 in 151 games in 2019. He's another guy. Hard hit numbers are middling. He's not a guy with a ton of power. Just had a few home runs, though, and had a really good playoffs, too. Poor barrel rate, but a guy who's fast. 89% sprint speed. Playing time is probably the issue here. Tampa Bay is certainly going to move guys around as they normally do. I think at pick 275, Margot's worth a stab.
Yeah, it's just a question of is he every day or is he platooning? I think he's I'd like to think he's every day, but it's the Rays, and it's they like them their platoons. He's batting in the middle of the order too. He's batting like fifth a lot.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, the back end of their lineup, like they're all really good, but the back end of their lineup is not super scary. So you can see him sticking at fifth. It's not like there's a bunch of guys who are it's not like Toronto or someone like that where you're like there's gonna guys passing him up, and you got Wendell and Willie Adames and Kevin Kiermeier, Mike Zunino, not guys that you're super scared of moving up the lineup.
Yeah, the question is power. He only hit one homer last year. 13's his career high, but he's in. I don't know. Maybe he's at an age where that starts to pick up a little bit, but that is you're still giving up power from a spot, but maybe that's less important this year with the dead ball too.
That's true too. I just think he's got it. We know he's fast, and if he plays a bunch, it could work out. I think the price is kind of right for him.
Right. And I misspoke a little bit. It's not a dead ball. It's a slightly deader ball.
Dead end ball. There you go. Miles Straw, ADP 290, is a guy that's hard to figure out too. I mean, he can't hit. I mean, it's just can't hit for power, I should say. He has 5 home runs in 6 seasons in his career, so you're gonna get no home runs likely out of him. 18.8% hard hit rate's really bad. The career barrel rate is obviously really low also, but stole 72 bases in 2018 across double and triple A. There is talk of him leading off. Now there's talk of Correa or Altuve leading off too, but maybe he leads off some games. 91st percentile sprint speed, a guy who knows how to steal bases. 27 in 2019 in 122 games. He had 6 last year in about half a season, played 33 games in 2020. The price is fine. It's 290. It's a spot where he doesn't have to work for it to work out, but you could see this working out kind of well, and being a sneaky stolen base guy, you could see him out of the lineup pretty quickly with how poor his offensive metrics look.
Yeah. My algo doesn't like him.
Not surprised by that.
Yeah. I personally, I think I probably underrate stolen bases, period. Because let's face it, 80% of the guys we've mentioned today, I'm like lower than the ADP, maybe 90%. I hate these guys. I need to adjust to the realities, and it's good. This is good that we're doing this exercise. It makes me realize I probably need to adjust a little bit.
It made me realize a lot too as I was going through it, because there's some ugly spots in here, and everybody after like the 7th round has some issues, and that's why the stolen bases are there, but there's a lot that's not. So, like 3 more guys I want to get to before we get out of here, but first a quick note from our sponsor, Stable Duel. Baseball has always been America's pastime, but a close second is horse racing. We've got the best way to get in on the action. Stable Duel brings a new way to play the races against your friends, similar to what we only know in fantasy football and baseball. You select your team or your stable of horses and compete against other stables for big money prizes. Watch your stable move to the leaderboard as your horses accumulate points based on where they finish the race. The app is free to download, and they offer free games so you can learn how to play at 0 risk. Don't know anything about horse racing? Don't worry. The app has all you need with free data on each horse's record, as well as a risk number, speed number, and value number for your best selections. This is the first game of its kind in horse racing. You don't want to miss out. Download the Stable Duel app to get in the game. Play, race, win with Stable Duel. So 3 more guys I want to talk about real quick, Jeff, before we got to go. Isaiah Kiner Falefel in Texas. Sounds like he's the starting shortstop. They moved Elvis Andrus out of there. He had 8 stolen bases last year in 58 games. People liked it last year because he was catcher eligible. Might hit first or second, though. We talked about Leoto Taveras. We don't know where the lineup's going to work out, but he might hit up the top of the lineup. Wasn't a big stolen base guy in the minors, never top 20, but he's fast, 81st percentile sprint speed. ADP 299, eligible at shortstop and third base. I'm kind of okay at the price here if maybe you need you're hoping for 12 to 15 bags, something like that.
Yeah. Sure would be nice if you're a catcher still, but
sure would.
Yeah, but that's nice. Yeah, I'm okay with him.
Yeah, you're not going to get pop. I think he hit 3 home runs last year, and he's a 2.2% barrel guy rate last year. I think you're going to get 5 home runs, but he might get 12 to 15 stolen. He's not exciting, but I don't know. As a guy maybe on your bench late, some dual eligibility, I think he kind of works because he gets corner and middle eligibility. Last couple guys here after round 20, just real quick. John Bertie has 26 stolen bases in 112 major league games. His ADP is 308. He feels like a guy to me, cheaper, but kind of similar to VR, where I think it's going to be really tough to time when he's going to play, and then maybe get frustrating when you're trying to find stolen bases from him.
Agreed. agreed. But I mean that's just kind of like what we're dealing with here. Bertie hasn't played much this spring. At least he hasn't started that frequently, I should say. He's not considered part of the mix of the second base job. At least that was we had a note in late February. Well, where the hell is he going to play then? I mean, he's only started one game in the last 7. He's coming in with the subs.
Yeah, and I just think it's still at around where you want guys who are playing. But if you're desperate for speed, I think you can grab him and maybe hope someone gets out of the lineup, someone struggles, and he kind of slides in. Oscar Mercado, you and I talked about a bunch earlier this season. We talked about kind of the last year's bums. He's a guy that it depends how much you want to toss out 2020, but you look at the minors, 50, 33, 38, and 37 steals in 2015, 2018, then 15 in the majors in 2019. He's someone that if he could get on base, if he could hit, the stolen bases are definitely there. He's fast. He's stolen a lot of bases, been successful out in the minors. It's just a matter of what he can hit in the major league level. I don't think we know that right now. It depends if you toss 2020 or not.
Yeah, 9th in the batting order too. Again.
Yep, another batting order guy.
Yeah, I mean it's funny. I mean, yeah, now it's funny you start to fixate on that now too. It's like that's that for this podcast that's been my go-to page is batting orders and where they've been playing. I could just have Mike Curlin whispering in my ear instead, although that'd be kind of weird, especially to capture that on video. But at any rate, Oscar Mercado is another guy that he was such a colossal bust last year. It's so hard to go back to that well.
I mean, ADP is like mid 400, so if you want to go 26, 27th round, I think he's worth a shot there, especially if you need some steals. Too many fly balls, like 40% last year for a guy with a 1.6% barrel rate. That doesn't make sense. You don't be hitting fly balls. But my last guy before I let you go, Kevin Kiermeier is free. His ADP is way down the list, post 450. 19 stolen bases in 2019 and 447 plate appearances. He had 8 last year in 49 games. Pretty good. Batting average an issue, but you look at Kiermeier's hard hit rate, 29% in 2018. 37.7% in 2019, 41.7% last year. The Bat X has him for 20 stolen bases. He's still fast, 97th percentile. He's my favorite, free stolen base guy. I think you'll get 15 out of him if you can. The batting average might be tough to stomach. I think he's becoming, he's hitting the ball harder, so that's a good sign. Maybe that batting average will come up a little bit, but he's my favorite kind of free guy that nobody wants late in the draft for some steals.
Yeah, he'll play. He'll play a lot. You might platoon him. That's the issue is unlike the Padres, the Rays have copious center field options.
They do.
And so that's if he's not hitting or when he gets hurt, they'll have someone else, no problem.
We're talking around 27. You push him up a little bit, and if you find a weekend where they face 3 righties, then you use him. He's a guy that you don't have to play every time, so I think he works well for that. Sure. And I think that if you're gonna give me 15 to 20 stolen bases this late in the draft, and maybe I can time it so I get 10 of those, I think he becomes a valuable guy in a 15-teamer, not a 12-teamer. In a 15-teamer, I think he's a valuable late guy.
I think that's a great distinction between the 15s and 12s. I agree. He's this year's Victor Reyes.
There you go. I like that. Anyway, Jeff is going to go do the radio show now, so if you want to hear Jeff, there'll be more of him to hear. Other than that, we're going to jump out of here. We'll do our ADPs and followers next time. But I want to thank everybody for listening to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Hopefully you got some good speed information here. I know it helped me a lot kind of going through everybody, kind of figuring out what I need to do in drafts. If you want to follow Jeff on Twitter, he's at Jeff_Erickson. I am at Scott Jenstad. Other than that, we'll be back at you next week. We're going to do a Targets and My Guys episode. So one of the more fun episodes we do in the preseason. We're going to have Scott Pianowski from Yahoo Sports join us. So that should be a lot of fun. Other than that, I hope everybody has a fantastic week. Enjoy all your drafts. We'll be back at you next Sunday night. Take care.
Please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.